Okay, so I'm recording the class. So, but welcome again. We're gonna, as I mentioned to the top of the class, for those of you joining us, I'm gonna end a little early today. I have to attend a meeting, and so I'm trying to be in two places at one time. So, but I think what I want to do today is, I think for us, important for us to be aligned on what needs to happen. Most of you are the ones who are here are pretty much aligned and staying in step with the assignments. Have stayed in step with the assignments, but I'm doing a little bit of calibrating. So the research papers were pretty decent. The issues were not necessarily in the context, or in a lot of you not in the organization. Some of the little kind of bumps were in more like the MLA and text citation, which is expected because it's the first time that that you're required to do it. So that, and also on the works cited page, some of you had some issues with the works cited page. Things like simple, like that you maybe included the articles, but you forgot to include the story. Sometimes it was the formatting, sometimes. So I gave you all some comments on it, but remember the works cited page is mechanics, right? So the paper doesn't go from an A to a B or C because the works cited page is not there. If it was missing, yes. But everybody included one. I think it's the first time ever that I get research paper where somebody doesn't just leave off the works cited page. So that's what I want to say in general with it. Again, if there were papers that didn't need a lot of comments, I didn't write. I just would say what was good about it, and I moved on. And those that needed a little more. Last time I could do it again. There's a way to look at more of the comments. If you can't see them like right away, you have to click something so that you can see my extra changes in the program's changes, and I go in and change the changes of the program and add to them. So that's what takes a little bit of the of time just doing so. Sometimes I'm split between just grading normal papers or grading these, right? So grading through Turnitin. But that's what I want to say in general. But I only have papers from about half of you. And I want to remind you that the research paper is about 20% of your grade. And the final. So even if you did everything, and you don't do the research paper, and you don't do the final exam, there's no way you're going to pass the class, right? So it's important to do the research paper. It's important to do all your assignments because each of them are a percentage of your grade. So every time you don't do something, you lose points. And I'm basically speaking to many of you who have been quite good at keeping track, but there's a couple of you who've fallen behind. And so it's with that in mind that I'm going to talk about the next thing. We are in the midst of our theater section of the class, which is a short section of the class. And we're going to do today, we're going to look at we left off talking about Hamlet, right? We talked about that whole synopsis of Hamlet. I asked you to take a look at the play, Ruby of Elsinore. We're not going to read the play together. We're going to read it on Wednesday when we come back together because I have to shorten the class today. But I want to do the step that I was going to do anyway. And half the time I start the play and then we never finish it because we always run out of time. So that way on Wednesday, we'll just read it. Yeah, it's funny. Thanks, John. Yeah, it is. The idea, it's supposed to be funny. So I'm glad if you think it's funny. It is. I think, I love Hamlet. I love Shakespeare, and I would love to teach the play, because I think if you notice, like almost anything that we touch, that we read in this class, there's so much that we can talk about and learn from and experience. And I think Shakespeare offers that as well, between Hamlet or Romeo and Juliet or any of the plays that he does. But Hamlet particularly, because Hamlet deals with, like big questions. Okay, great. So Erica, I will take a look at yours because your grade should be there too. And usually the grade is at the bottom. Just Erica, I don't know if it's a private note or a note you send to everybody, but I'm just, the chat keeps popping up to everyone. All right, you should look. Make sure people see it at the end of. You have to open your document and read it at the end, because I don't put the grade in the little area that says grade with the little check marks. I don't put it there because that's using a number grade, and then I have to put a number grade there. So So you have to actually open your document and scroll to the bottom of it where I normally would put the grade and the explanation. Okay, let me just I'm headed to pick up my kids. Okay. All right. Okay, I want to catch up on the chat. Cool. So today we're gonna kind of do the segue into the play by looking at particularly the monologue, the dramatic monologue of To Be or Not to Be, which is the other thing I had asked you to look at. So we're gonna look at it, we're gonna read it together. And then since we're studying the theater section, one of the important aspects of theater are the actors. So we're gonna see, hear the monologue read by two different actors and see how the reading of it affects the experience of it and the meaning behind it. Just thinking about, like I said, part of this is I'm doing planning for the lesson and talking about the rest of the semester. So we were going to have one more paper on Ruby of Elsinore that was going to be due. But what I'm going to do is this, I'm going to make it optional. I'm going to make it as an opportunity for if you wanted to keep it as an extra credit. So I'm going to post the assignment, but it's not going to be a required essay. And this is two things. One, because for those of you who have kept in step, that we can just focus on, we can go into theater and just enjoy the learning of it. And because next week we're going to begin preparing for the final exam. So you could do, if you've got the paper and you want to do the extra credit, do it. But remember, for those of you who you can't do extra credit instead of the paper. So you have to have done your poetry, you have to have done your fiction essay, you'd have to have done your research paper. And when you, and ultimately take the final exam before any extra credit gets added to your grades. Okay, so that the theater one, I will post it. It will be two things. One, it'll be like an opportunity for extra credit, and you know, and also it would be just good practice because it will be a prompt that will give you that you have to respond to, and that's basically the way the final exam is going to work. It's we have the two poems, so my plan is to on Monday focus on one poem, right? And focus, we're gonna do a little bit of spoken word on Monday, but then focus on one poem, and then on Tuesday, focus on the second poem and prepare for the exam. And then we have space the following Monday, which will be our last class, for any final things regarding the final exam. I keep looking to the side because I have my notes. So my notes are written here. So To Be or Not to Be, and then spoken word. Yeah, so that's it. So at this point, if you have done your research paper and you're satisfied with your grades, you're done. But if you're still missing work, then you should listen up. So the last day to submit any missing work is going to be this Sunday. And I'm saying that because I don't think if you were my only class, then I could give you all my attention, but I have other classes. And so if I keep pushing the deadline for you who haven't submitted work, more and more the semester comes to the end, and then it's just not feasible. I mean, I get around to being able to grade it. So I will guarantee that if folks, and I'm sending a separate email out because I'm looking at the screen of all the names here, and these are the names that submit work. So but if there's for classmates, if you're friends with anybody and they're not here, I will send a note to the whole class to say that this Sunday, if you're missing work, that'll be the last day to submit any work. And also, if you want to do any revisions, I'm going to make it this Sunday as well. So some of you, if you have revisions, except the only exception is the research paper. I will give you till a week from Sunday to do if you want to do any revisions on the research paper. Okay, that's the only exception. Otherwise, the poetry or fiction, you should get me that by Sunday. And of course, if you're missing any work, you should get that by Sunday. So I'm spending more time on this than I wanted, but I want to talk about this as well. So really everything, you know, I think it's common sense, but I think a lot of times you need to hear it. Like all the work that we do in this class is important, right? And whether it's a graded assignment or it's assignment that, you know, that wasn't graded, that was an assignment that you had to do, a writing response to something, that all of that is important work. And so even though those homework assignments don't count as much toward your grade, they do count toward your grade, right? So I think in this class, hold on a second, I'm looking at my grade sheet. I just want to let you know how many from this class. you had, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7. So you had 7 writing homework assignments, like, the theme the theme assignment for the judge's wife, the sticks assignment, the assignments that all those little writing assignments. So there were 7 of them for the semester that you did. So again, if you did all 7, even if they were incorrect, it's okay. If you said the theme was wrong, it's okay. The important thing was that you did them, right? So if you did the assignment, then you get credit for having done the assignment. But if you're missing one, it's not the end of the planet, right? It's not like you're gonna lose all the credit. But if you start missing 2 and 3 of the 7, just think, if you miss 3 of the 7, you almost have done half of the assignments, right? And if you miss 4, you've done less than half of the assignments. So that will start to impact your grade as well. So I just want to say, use this time so there's not another big essay due, right? For those of you who are maybe a little behind, there's a moment for you to catch up. And for those of you who have stayed to task, if there's an opportunity that you want to do a revision, you have an opportunity to do some revision. So that's it. Is that clear? Questions? No? Okay. All right, cool. So so it was interesting when we were studying poetry, right? One of the poem that we talked about 3 types of poems. We talked about lyric poems, right? We talked about prose narrative poems, and we talked about there was a poem we called it dramatic poems, dramatic monologues, right? And so so the To Be or Not to Be is an example of a dramatic monologue, right? It's a monologue that's basically, it's almost like and particularly Shakespeare, it's written like almost as a poem, but it's a poem that's inside of a play that is given as a monologue, and it's a speech that a character is giving to the audience. Yeah, it's very dramatic. And so the To Be or Not to Be is an internal monologue, right? Sometimes the monologues or a soliloquy when an actor is talking on the stage and they tell you something, they're talking to the audience. And in a way, the Hamlet character is internal. And so what's happening with him is this happens in kind of midway through the play, and he's really trying to decide if he should kill his father, the father, the uncle, like if he should do this, right? If this is like a big thing for him, so it's a big question, right? I mean, I don't know, hopefully none of us will ever be faced with a question this big, but it's a question that really, they call it existential questions. Has anybody ever heard that phrase, existential? If you look at, I'm going to type the word in the chat, right? So we can take a look at the word. Right? If you look at the word existential, the first part of it is the word exist, right? So usually when people have an existential crisis or something's existential, is about like it questions our existence, our purpose, our for being, right? The purpose, why we exist. So so he's having an existential conversation with himself. And so I want to take a look at it, and I'm going to share my screen. And as Mabel said, it's very dramatic. And here's the speech. And right? And you may have heard this a million times in the world, because sometimes on TV shows and in movies, sometimes there's scenes from Shakespeare, or there's always like to be or not to be, that is the question, right? So let's take a look at it, right? So it says to be or not to be, that is the question, right? What do you think be means? What he means, like to be or not to be?
Existence.
I kind of heard rumbling, and then I heard the word existence, but I'm not sure where it came from. It was Mabel, or it was Johnny, or someone else.
Go ahead, Mabel. I said existence.
Okay.
I was gonna say the same thing, except that I like went line for line, but I think that's what you're gonna do. So I'm just
Mhm.
gonna wait till we get to each line.
Okay, no, okay, good. But to be or not to be, he's asking that question, like, like to be what? To be could be to exist, right? Or not to exist. It could be to be whatever, to be strong, to be, decisive, to be like, anyway, to be or not to be. That is the question. So he's saying like this or that, right? So there's the idea of exploring the idea of a question. And then he says, whether 'tis noble in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, right? Where he says, whether it's a good thing, right? It's a noble thing to deal with the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, right? The slings, like all the turbulence, right? Of maybe something great, right? Or to take arms against a sea of troubles and by opposing end them, right? Or to like stand up to them, to your sea of troubles, and then by opposing them, end them, right? It could be one of like do all these things, all these options. And then he says to die, to sleep, no more. And by sleep to say we end the heartache and the thousand natural shocks that is the flesh is heir to. So he says to die, right? To sleep, no more. And by sleep we end the heartache and the thousand natural shocks, right? So you could also die, right? And then maybe sleep, and then all that pain and all that outrageous, all the sea of troubles could end, right? And he says, and end what we as human beings experience, right? The heartache and the thousand natural shocks the flesh is heir to. And then he says, "'Tis a consummation devoutly to be wished," right? Like this idea of ending pain or ending trouble, is what you want, right? And then he goes again, to die, to sleep, right? And he says, to sleep, perchance to dream. And he goes, oh,
I feel
I.
like
There's
I
the
feel like
rub. Go
he's
ahead.
spiraling.
Say that again.
I feel like he's in a spiral, like an emotional spiral.
Totally,
Because
right?
it's like everything is worst case scenario.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like when he was saying to be or not to be, is like, is he gonna go through this? Is he gonna give up? Is it gonna stop? Is it gonna continue? So it's like a spiral. And I also was gonna say, like, rereading this made me think like, wow, like that's some really good writing.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
never really thought about it. We hear this so much, this monologue so much, but I never really thought about much how much in depth he goes into this like negative space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. It's dramatic, and and he said, and as you're saying now, it's also very dark, right? So you're right. It's if you notice this, the whole construction of this monologue, he is spiraling, and it's like this almost this downward spiral. And there's moments where you could think of a spiral going this way, you could think of a spiral going this way, and if you think of it in the two different ways, one way is like spiraling down and sinking into something, and in the other way it's like this up and down, right? This up and down that he's doing it, right? And this little section when he says to sleep or chance to dream, and for a minute you think it's like dreams dreams are different from nightmares, right? So dreams are supposedly good, right? But he says, aye, there's the rub. For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come. Like, what do we dream of, right? When we die, when we have shuffled off this, when we have gotten rid of this mortal coil, this body, it must give us pause, right? We have to wait and think about this. There's the respect that makes calamity of life, of so long a life, right? So he's saying the idea to sleep, a chance to dream, and he says, oh wait, but we don't know what we're going to dream of. We don't know what's going to happen when we get rid of this mortal coil. And so inside of that wondering, right, he says that makes calamity of so long a life.
The
Like,
afterlife.
yeah, like he's wondering what's over there, right? And
Mhm.
since we don't know, like,
But
if suddenly, not to say, I don't want to say this, I want you all to live, never ever do this, but like if you said, if I killed myself, I would wake up and it would be like a party and we'd be happy forever. Some people might be like, oh, you know what, that's an option, right? But him saying, I don't know what's over there.
but I don't know. I put it kind of together when you mentioned about the father and the story, what happened, and he came as a ghost
Mm-hmm.
and he went to the purgatory.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I kind of put it together with having to do something with that when he
Well,
wrote that.
that's good to, that's important to bring up, because I think you have to understand the belief system, right, of the character. And we know that in this case, we know that a ghost appeared to them. First of all, he questions the ghost, right? Is it a ghost? Is it really my father? Is it like a demon trying to trick me? So whether it's all of those things, it's something that lives in the realm of his belief system, right? This is something, people have all different kind of belief systems, right? People may believe different things. They might say this guy's crazy. If somebody sees a ghost, you're a nut, right? But some people believe it and say, of course, there's spirits that exist in the world, and I have relationships with them and stuff like that. So let's go back to this. So he is that. It's continuing as both Johnny and Mabel are noticing this kind of this spiral. Yeah, Mabel, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, he's been killed the love for me. Like when he was talking about unvalued, I was like, I thought, like even that he's like not positive about. Like any bright spot
Yes,
goes dark with him.
exactly. Right.
Even and some people think like, oh, to live a long life, how beautiful it would be. No, not for him. The calamity
Right.
of a long life. That's
Right.
done too.
That's, yeah. I mean, it's yeah. This is so rich. I maybe I should teach it as a poem by itself earlier in the class. But no, but I'm just saying. But you're ready. Like this is where you're at, right? That you are able to look at all these things. What I was saying with the last lesson, that you're able to look at poems and see them and have experiences like this with them. Be able to see them on a micro and a macro level. So let's keep going. For the goes, for who would bear the whips and scorns of time? Like who would put up with all this stuff? The oppressor's wrong, right? The people who oppress you, the proud man's contumely, that's the proud man's like also like coming down, the pangs of despised love. He's again, as Mabel is pointing out, he's looking at life through this dark, negative lens. The law's delay, right? The insolence of office, the spurns, that patient merit of the unworthy takes, when he himself might his quietest make with a bare bodkin, right? It's saying like, so what person would deal with all the shit, right? Excuse my language, of life. If you could take a bodkin is like a thing that you can stab yourself and kill yourself. If you would take a quietus, if you could put it all to make it stop with a bodkin, and goes, who would fartles bear to grunt and sweat under a weary life, but the dread of something after death, right? But that's it. The one thing that keeps him from doing that is the dread of something after death. What will be in the afterlife? The undiscovered country for whose bourne no traveler returns, puzzles the will and makes us rather bear those ills we have than fly to others that we know not of, right? So he says, since we don't know what's on the other side, right? That's why we put up with all the crap of life. It's because we're so afraid of what might be on the other side, right? What may be that to fly to others that we know not of, we don't know what's there. Thus consciousness makes cowards of us all, right? To have a conscience, he says, makes cowards of us all. And thus the native hue of resolution is sickly o'er the pale cast of thought, and enterprises of great pith and moment with disregard their currents turn awry and lose the name of action, right? So this whole idea of to be or not to be, right? This whole idea that he keeps saying, he's thinking this through, and he's like, oh my God, this is so hard. Life is so hard. Oh my God, from love, it's all this. Why would anybody put up with all this pain? Well, we could
And
kill
he's a
ourselves.
prince, right? He's a
And he's a
prince.
prince, right? And he's a
So
prince,
it's
right?
just like privilege.
Exactly. Like, I'll tell you this funny. I was telling somebody this just last night, but yeah. So he goes through this whole thing and goes, well, you know what scares me is that I don't know what's on the other side. Like I could kill myself. I could kill it, and it would stop all of this, right? And if any of you, like, I used to volunteer for a suicide hotline when I was young. Very difficult work, by the way. But one of the things they taught us was that they said that people who consider suicide don't necessarily want to end their lives. They want to end the pain, right? And so they don't see another way of ending the pain other than ending their lives. And in a way, that's what's happening in this monologue, that Hamlet's in a lot of pain and indecision. And so he's thinking that one of the ways I could end this pain, anyway, any of us could end the pain of life, is if we kill ourselves. And he goes, but what's on the other side? I don't know. It could be worse. And the fact me being so afraid of what's on the other side, then I stay paralyzed. And then I become a coward, right? Because I'm not standing up for the things that I want, and I'm too afraid to make a decision, that kind of decision. So that line when he says, you know, thus,
I was thinking also like when he says to be or not to be, like to feel or not to feel, because you're going back and forth of, yes, this pain is bad and unbearable for him, but then how do I know? Like, what is this really gonna stop it? Like you said.
mhm,
So it's
right.
just like like I don't know. I would have, if I would have been a fly on the wall, I would have definitely told them like, this is cowardice right now. All this complaining.
Exactly. Exactly. That's a manifestation of it, right? And that's one of the things. Well, let's pause for a second and step out of the monologue for a minute. And this is like a heads up if people didn't get a chance to read Ruby of Elsinore. This is one of the funny points of it. When you meet Hamlet, right? Ruby's like over him, right? She's like, Ruby is like, make a decision, like, and you know, she's like,
I'm
the
Ruby. That is me.
yeah, okay. When we come to class on Wednesday, you could be one of the rubies because when we come to read it together, I'm going to ask all of you to take a role and we could read it together. Um, but yeah, but she's like Ruby's over him. Like there's a moment in it where the king says, "I think he wants to kill me. If you hear anything, let me know." And she calls him up, and he's like, "To be or not to be, to have bangs, to not to have bangs." They're like this. And that. She goes, "Don't worry about it. I don't think he's going to do anything." But
Can you really cover the bold spot
I know
when the ghost comes from?
the ghost, right? Yeah. So but yes. So what I want to do today also is like let us you know, I kind of wanted to break it down a little bit so we could see the big picture where you are all quite astute and are doing a great job with that. But I want you to hear like two different actors read it, and mainly because we're in the theater section, and it's interesting to see if hearing these words and now understanding a little bit of a little more about the meaning or being able to have discuss the meaning to see if the delivery, right, if the reading of it has any impact to the words or how you experience the monologue. Okay, so I did share screen, but I'm gonna stop sharing for a minute because I think I have to make sure I click the sound. Yep, I have to share sound when I click. Okay. Okay. All right. Should be okay. Can you guys hear anything?
No.
Hear anything? No?
We hear you, but not the video.
Okay. All right, let me just leave that alone. Let me play it, and I'm gonna keep you all here, so you just let me know if you can hear it or not. No.
It's paused.
It's a bit slow.
To be
Yes, we can hear it.
We hear it.
or not to be.
I don't know what that is.
To be or not to be. That is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles and by opposing end them, to die, to sleep, no more, and by asleep to say we end the heartache and the 1,000 natural shocks that flesh is heir to. 'Tis a consummation devoutly to be wished. To die. To sleep. To sleep. Perchance to dream. Aye, there's the rub. For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come when we have shuffled off this mortal coil must give us pause. There's the respect that makes calamity of so long life. For who would bear the whips and scorns of time, the oppressor's wrong, the proud man's contumely, the pangs of despised love, the law's delay, the insolence of office, and the spurns that patient merit of the unworthy takes, when he himself might his quietus make with the bare bodkin? Who would fardels bear to grunt and sweat under a weary life, but that the dread of something after death, the undiscovered country, from whose bourne no traveller returns, puzzles the will and makes us rather bear those ills we have than fly to others we know not of. Thus, conscience does make cowards of us all. And thus, the native hue of resolution is sicklied o'er with the pale cast of thought, and enterprises of great pitch and moment with this regard, their currents turn awry and lose the name of action.
You hear me? All right.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
My computer's flashing. Check your device, check your audio. I don't know what it's doing. I'm just gonna ignore it as long as you can hear me. So what do you think about his delivery? Like how he delivered it, how he brought it? Did any of the
A lot.
ideas get highlighted by his delivery?
A lot of pain, dramatic.
I felt less drama, actually. For me, it was less drama. I was like, wow, I guess I'm the dramatic one.
No, you thought it was everybody's. Wait, is somebody speaking?
Yeah, I spoke.
Maybe
Can you
that's
hear
it.
us?
Maybe I can't hear you now. I can hear you. Damn it. Hold on a second.
Can you hear now? It's for you to know if we talk, if you can hear us.
Can you hear us?
We can hear you now.
I can hear you.
Muted.
That cruz
I'm
out,
muted.
that cruz out.
I'm muted.
Okay.
Nah.
So
All
I
right.
spoke at the beginning and I said that he was dramatic and he looked like pain, suffering, but more drama than I don't know. That's what I say. The
Okay.
message and the way he delivered,
Mhm.
very dramatic.
Yeah, well, it's good that he gets to communicate the pain, right? That, and the way he does it by these gestures. Like he's at one point he's rubbing his heart, right? And he's doing that, and he's kind of and has the look on his face, right? That whole idea. Anybody
For me,
else?
it was, yeah, for me, I was actually, I thought it was less drama. And then I was like, wow, I guess I'm the dramatic one when I read it. Because I was like seeing this, like, oh my goodness, this is deep. Why is he, you know? But when this guy, I felt like he was a little bit more, I guess it was the pauses for me.
Mm-hmm.
When he paused and the tone, for me, it made it more like he's not that distraught, but he's just asking these questions about life. Like you said, the existential questions. And it's just like, you know, like a midlife crisis, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of the pause, like in this one, there is that, right? There's some of the pain, but there's a lot of what he does is the confusion, right? And he's in there in the questioning, that whole staring, right? And those pauses, right? He pauses for a long time, and then he says something, and then he continues, right? So you feel like it's really a thought process happening inside of his head. Like he's thinking of all this stuff as we're seeing it, like live. It's not like a monologue that he memorized and he's got to deliver it, that it's live, So there is that. All right, let's take a look at one other actor and see one other person do it.
To be or not to be? That is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles and by opposing end them. To die. To sleep no more. And by asleep, to say we end the heartache and the thousand natural shocks that flesh is heir to. 'Tis a consummation devoutly to be wished. To die. To sleep. To sleep, perchance to dream. Aye, there's the rub. For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come when we have shuffled off this mortal coil must give us pause. There's the respect that makes calamity of so long life. For who would bear the whips and scorns of time, the oppressor's wrong, the proud man's contumely, the pangs of despised love, the law's delay, the insolence of office, and the spurns that patient merit of the unworthy takes, when he himself might his quietus make with a bare bodkin? Who would fardels bear to grunt and sweat under a weary life, but that the dread of something after death, the undiscovered country from whose bourne no traveler returns, puzzles the will, and makes us rather bear those ills we have than fly to others that we know not of. Thus, conscience does make cowards of us all, and thus the native hue of resolution is sicklied o'er with the pale cast of thought, and enterprises of great pitch and moment with disregard, their currents turn awry, and lose the name of action.
These are the forgeries of jealousy.
Okay. What about this delivery?
It was more cold, less emotion, more like self-talking to himself.
Yeah.
I can hear you. You can hear me? Can you hear me now? Do you hear me now?
Not yet.
I can hear you. I think every time I go away, it knocks you out, and then it puts me on mute. So, right.
So I was saying that he was like a colder character. He was like talking to himself. I was able to tell that, but it was with less emotion. It was like more like when you start talking to yourself and you're doing this wrong and so on. So it's more like talking to yourself. The other one had more emotion involved into the crying, the faces, the acting part. It was more of that.
Yeah, this is like definitely you get the sense of an internal monologue, right? Of somebody really thinking about themselves. Mayelin, you were saying something or no? I'm sorry.
Not really.
Okay.
But like Joanny says, he was more talking by himself. The other one was more delivering a like in a stage, like when you're doing a theater, this one looks more like okay, this is me with the pain, and I'm talking about myself, completely different than the other one.
Interesting point that you bring out, right? That the other one, you felt the sense of him acting on a stage, right? So he was using his body, right? He was using his shoulders, his hands, he was doing gestures. And this you felt was filmed, right? Because it focused on his face, right? First of all, the filming, right? Is it bright lighting? No, right? It's very dark, very shadowy. Like he's wearing black, it's a black background, right? He's got this very steady voice, right? Almost hypnotic, the way he's, delivering the speech, and he's totally absorbed in his thoughts. And it's moving a lot quicker than the other one. The other one, right? There was all those pauses and all that wondering. So it's interesting, they both kind of bring together this idea of an internal monologue, but do it very differently. And so that's one of the beauties and power of theater, right? That you can go and see the same actor read the same thing over and over again, or different actors reading it. And the theatrical experience brings that. But a lot of the messages about the piece are there, right? A lot of the messages about what the monologue is about is present, right? So, I wish that we could all go see a play together. I'm actually going to go see a play on Sunday. A friend of mine, is her birthday, and so she is asking everybody to go see this play. So I'll tell you about it. It's called Clyde's, and it's at this place called the Second Stage. But one thing I will also do is there's a play that I wrote that that is not like, some of you went to the reading of the play that I did, and so I figure at some point, maybe toward the last class, we'll talk a little bit about those. But talk about that. But what you experienced was something that was in process, right? So it was a work that's being developed. And so on December 7th, there will be, well, actually, yeah, it's going to be tough for you. So December 7th, and there's a couple of dates that the play is going to be live every night in the theater in the Bronx, called the theater that I'm connected to, called BAD. So it'll be there. If any of you, I will give you the schedule. If any of you want to go, you're welcome to go there. I will not be there every night. I will be there most nights. I'll be there on the 7th for sure, and the 9th for sure. But then the last 2 nights of the play, on the 17th and 18th, they're going to also live stream it. So if you can't go and you want to see it on the live stream, you'll be able to see that. And even though they charge on the live stream, I will find a free code. I got a code for you, maybe, also students, whatever. And you can see it. You can see the code for free. But if you go to the theater as well, if you want to see it, it'll be for free. You do have to be vaccinated if you go into the space live. So I just will warn people about that. And it's in the Bronx on the number 6 line near Westchester Square. So if some of you live near there, then it might be easy for you to get to. But if you don't, then it might be a little more challenging. I know we've got finals, we've got a lot of exams, we've got a lot of things going on, but there's an opportunity for you to check that out. But okay, so that's good. Yeah, so I think, one of the things Ostos as well, I should have let you know about this, had a play called Swagger that it did this weekend. I don't know why they did it over the holiday weekend, but they did. And it was, I got a link and I watched it this weekend, and one of my former students from one of my 111 classes was in it. But Ostos also very often has plays. One of the many jobs. I'm a professor at Ostos, but I also do work with the theater, and I program theater and dance there. So next semester we're getting ready to do some things in dance and theater. So if any of you are here next semester, or even if you've moved on and you're no longer at Ostos, you're welcome to come back and experience some of the art that happens there. But just to kind of cap off theater before we read Ruby of Elsinore together, yeah, it's one of the beautiful things about theater is that we can read a play and learn from it and have an experience with it, the way we have with poems and the way we have with fiction stories, right? There's themes and plots, and there's all kinds of things that exist in theater. But keep in mind that the purpose of theater is for it to be performed and for us to see it live, live on stage. And so that's why it's great to talk about the to be and not to be monologue. And though I could give you a dramatic reading myself, I felt it would be good for you all to see some professional actors interpret the text in two different ways, so that you can all have at least a little bit of a little taste of what it could be like to hear a monologue by an actor, and to see the similarities and differences of how theater could be delivered and experienced. Okay. So so not to cramp too many things in there, so I can Tarzan swing into my to my next meeting. I just want to review on Wednesday when we come back together. I already got Mabella's going to be one. I usually ask for 2 people to do Ruby, so Mabella's ready. I'm going to guess Mabel volunteered, but if you didn't volunteer, I'll let you raise your hand again on Wednesday. But I'm basically going to ask folks to we'll just take a roll. I'll put it on the screen. We'll read it together. We'll talk about it, have the experience of us reading the play together. And there is a production of it online. It is terrible. It is so bad. I saw it one time. I was like, oh my God, we could watch it. It's terrible. So I think I enjoy my students reading it way better than seeing those people do it online.
The hair salon one?
Yeah, no,
I Googled it.
Oh, you did? You saw it? Did you see it?
YouTube.
Yeah, on YouTube.
Yeah. I didn't like it.
Right? It looks sad. Yeah, Cesar. Oh no, he's just raising. Okay.
Professor, I have a question. Are we going to perform this by reading, or we gotta memorize it?
Oh no, we're gonna read it. We're gonna read it together.
Because I took some acting class before in the past in here in Hostos.
Oh, you did? Oh, cool.
Yes, I took acting class, by the way, also a whole semester, and I performed a couple of I played like 3-4 times. Oh my God.
Cool.
But it was a long time ago. It was in 2015, 14, when I first came to this country. It was funny, but it was a little scary.
Yeah, no, it's not.
By people.
Yeah.
It was a lot of people. Yeah.
What were the plays? Do you remember the plays you did?
Oh my goodness. I did Romeo and Juliet. Long time ago. I did like 3 or 4 different ones. I don't even remember.
It's cool.
I believe we did The Beauty and the Beast, and another one like more, I would say like professional, like no, not professional, but like more, I don't know.
With more technical stuff?
Yes, something like that.
Well,
it's a little scary right now when you say.
Yeah, so no, you don't have to memorize it and all that kind of stuff, right? Yeah. Okay, so what I'll do is there's a couple, like Cesar is still telling me he can't see his grade, so I'm gonna make sure that it's there. And before we, but we could do that too, me neither, Erica, and who else? Just still Cesar and Erica? Okay, everybody else is able to see it. All right, anyway, take a look at it. And then if you have questions about any of the comments or anything about it, let me know next week, and then, not next week, on Wednesday, and we'll spend some time to that. So we'll begin on Wednesday with any questions for the research papers, and then in case any of you want to do revisions, et cetera, and then we'll read Ruby together. We should be able to read Ruby in the class time and have time to discuss it, because I think it's technically like a 20-minute play. So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So already start thinking about what roles you want to play for next class. Any other questions? No? All right. So then I'll see folks on Wednesday, and Cesar and Erica just hang out for a minute. And I'm gonna check the site on this end. Anyway, so thank you for your time and attention as always. I'm already starting to miss you all, but it's okay. I always say this, I'll always be your professor, even though the class is over.
Aw.
I think that
You'll always be special to me, Professor. I learn a lot.
Oh,
Yeah,
good,
for
good,
me
good.
too. I was thinking like we should go when you mentioned the theater on the 7th, that we all should go, and that way so we can meet each other, so we can meet
That would
you.
be kind of fun if you're going to
It's
do
gonna
that.
be
Yeah.
fun. Maybe we can have some dinner after that.
Mhm.
That would be
We'll see.
nice.
Let's see
All
on
right.
Wednesday. Just think about it.
All right, and then between now and Wednesday, I'll make sure I'll get you all the information. So if any of you want to do that, we can do that. Group chat, yes. All right, so then Cesar and Erica hang out a minute, and then and I'm going to check that for you. And the rest of you have a great night. I'll see you on Wednesday.
I'll see you on Wednesday. Have a good night, Professor. Good night,
Good night,
everyone.
Professor. Good night, everyone. Miami. Can you want to exchange numbers?
Sure. Can I put on the chat?
Yeah.
I don't know how to do private chat anyhow, I forgot.
I don't think it's going to allow us to.
It doesn't?
No, it only allows us to.
Can I say, Professor?
You can only private chat me. You can't private chat each other.
Oh, wait,
No.
wait. I believe I can do it now. Let me see.
It doesn't allow me. I've tried before.
I can send you mine, so and then you
It doesn't matter for me. It's the same.
Cesar is also suggesting a group chat. So he put his number.
All right. Here's my phone number.
Okay, hold on.
Oh my God, I see so many numbers right now.
I'll leave it open.
So Johnny, you'll text me, okay?
Okay, I will. I'll text you right now for you to have it, and then we can take it from there.
Sure. Okay. It's right there.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Professor?
Yes.
Yeah, I can't see my grade too.
Yeah, I saw that in the chat. So let me just start with Cesar and see his first.
Good night, everyone. Bye-bye.
Good night. All right, so I'm just gonna share my screen and a little bit, and I'm not gonna scroll all, and my screen is crazy because it's doing all this audio stuff. But this is Cesar's paper. So Cesar, you should, this would be the end with anyone. You should open your paper. If you want to see more of the grammatical things, you just click that. You click this, and it will show you some of the comments. And then if you scroll all the way to the bottom, right, you should be able, just don't want to go beyond all the way to the bottom. You go below here, you should be able to see your grade. So what I'm going to do is come back to class. I'm going to put people in the waiting room and then bring you back in. All right. So Erica. And okay, so now it's just you and me. You hear me?
Yeah, I do.
So
It's just recording.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We don't need to record this part. All right.
Sorry, Professor.